Hello, George. We're live.
Hello, Ching. So glad to see you, and thank you so much for having me here too. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for coming to this show. And my name's Ching Juhl, and I do this called a live interview. And for usually I see people, arty people, right? Like you,
Mhm.
you're author, you're actor, and you're wear many hats. And
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
so I think today is my episode 220 since 2020 March.
Wow.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So tell us, where are you right now?
Right now, I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. I have been here since 2011, and I have after a little while of really kind of getting myself acclimated and getting myself working, and really once I finished up my master's in communications over here for Webster University, that's when I really kind of became a home, really. It no longer became just a place that we were moving to. It was my home, and it's now wow, it's almost 12 years now that we've been here, and I wouldn't change a thing.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit where where were you born?
I was born in St. Vincent's Hospital in New York, New York. It was
St. Vincent's. That's
Yep.
the same hospital my son was born.
No kidding.
Yes, St.
No
Vincent.
kidding.
No more St. Vincent's. They
Yeah.
disappeared.
Yeah, I know. I was
Oh my
really
god.
sad to hear when they shut down.
My gynecologist doctor is Dr. Maggio. Anyway, oh my god. So you're a New Yorker.
I am. Yeah, we lived in over at my grandparents' house for a couple of years in Secaucus, New Jersey. And the timing was great because I was born, and then a few months later, that's when I believe Giant Stadium opened. So over at the Meadowlands. So it wound up being a good fit. You can say the New York, New Jersey area has been very good to me. So it's something that I really just really appreciate, and I really loved, during the time that I was there. I grew up in Poughkeepsie, New York, which is about an hour outside of New York City, and then moved down to Richmond, Virginia for 6 years, for 7th and 8th grade, and then all 4 years of high school. And I knew during all that time, I got to get back to New York. I got to get back to New York. It just feels like that is more of where I need to be. Um, Granted, the last 2 years of high school, that's when things really opened up for me, and I was able to really kind of determine what it was I was going to do. But the real love was all about just getting back to New York. That was the real driving goal, and I was able to do that. So I went to Marymount Manhattan College in New York City on 71st Street. I went there, I studied theater, and while I was there for the concentration in acting, and I finished it, and I continued acting throughout all 4 years of that school and was doing a couple little things afterwards, the writing really kind of rose to the surface. That was where I realized that was where the love truly was. I had done some writing when I was in high school as a means of kind of coping with the fact that my artistic skills were not going anywhere. So all of my extracurricular activities that I was doing in terms of drawing and coming up with all these different characters and developing the ones that I created back in 4th grade, that led to me writing about them more instead of just drawing them. And that opened the door for me to really kind of want to pursue writing. And it was right after I had graduated from college, that was when I started coming up with this idea for what originally was going to be a video game concept. And then it was afterwards, that's when I started looking at it as a means of, well, let's see how it looks as a treatment for a script. And then I wrote the treatment. And then the year later, I was like, let's see how it is as a script. And over the next couple of years, I must have written about a dozen drafts of this story. And the basic story was it was really kind of born just from walking around Amsterdam Avenue.
Mm,
Since I lived on 77th and Broadway, that's where my dorm was,
mm,
and I remember this vividly. I had just finished watching an episode um, of Wrestling Challenge. It was the WWF show that was on Saturday mornings at that time. Right after the cartoons ended, they switched over to WWF, and it was right at that point, one of the matches that I saw was featuring my favorite wrestler, The Undertaker, and it was what they call a squash match. It was, going out there and just throwing someone around the ring for maybe like a minute and then pinning them, and that's the end of it. And that's what he did. And I remember just walking around Amsterdam Avenue thinking to myself, wow, like how fun would it be if all of this stuff, all of the larger than life characters, all these larger than life storylines, what if they were happening in the real world? What if the action that took place was not predetermined? What if it was really, two people enter and you still have the over the top characters, you still have the over the top storylines, but it's up to the guys in the ring to figure it out. What would that be like? And then I started thinking about how there would be a power struggle behind the scenes, and there would be one person who's brought in as a means of basically being like a weapon for, like one of the top guys, kind of tear through the ranks. And just as he's about to deliver the killing blow for the champion, right after he pins him, he looks out in the stands and he sees his wife, and that triggers a memory. And then all of a sudden he turns on the guys that made him this, and all of a sudden he's got to go back up and fight his way back up the ranks and face the champion that he just won the title for. And so that was going to be just a video game concept. It was going to be like Mortal Kombat, just going, win, 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 win. And then the storyline, kicks in, and all of a sudden he sees his wife. He becomes a good guy, goes back down the ranks, has to go and face all the bad guys and all the way up to the champion. That was the idea. And then it became a treatment for a script, and then it became several drafts of a script. Like, there were characters that I brought in and that I dropped, and nothing was happening with them and everything. And I even brought it over to the New York International Independent Film and Video Festival. They had a category.
wait, excuse me. So, what is the title you're talking about right now?
That is eventually it. The reason why I didn't say the title yet is because I had gone through so many different titles for it.
Mm.
And originally I had just called it Manhunter, just after the character's name. Then I changed his name to Submission because I didn't want to confuse it with the Michael Mann movie Manhunter. And then I changed the character's name to Submission, so it just became Submission. And then in 2001, after going through all of these different iterations with it, and even taking it to a film and video festival, where it won a category, they just created a category so that they can give it an award. So they gave it Best Futuristic Drama an award for that. So it's like, hey, it's an award, I'll take it. And so then in 2001, I decided I'm going to write the novel, but I'm going to call it From Parts Unknown. And that became the title from then on. And so it became this 230 something page book that I just self-published because it was a very, very niche market the way that it was. And then I decided to turn it into an ebook and then try to get the rights back for it, for myself. So because I had worked with a group called iUniverse, this was back in 2002. So just to set the stage. So Amazon was not what it was, what it would wind up being. It was very much still like that self-publishing stigma. Oh, you had to pay to get it out there. That's not a real book. You're not a real writer. And everything, obviously the playing field is completely different now. But what I wanted to do with this was I wanted to come up with a little with a I wanted to do something with it. I wanted to have some fun with it and get it out there on my own. So I got the rights back and I read up on it, and I didn't like it anymore. It didn't actually I
Self
I
criticism.
love the story. Exactly. A lot of, like a lot of self-criticism. There's a lot of that in my story.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was thinking of is just like I love the storyline. I just hate the execution the way it is for this. So I knew something had to change up. Something had to be different. And so I spent so much time rewriting that whole thing. I rewrote it from top to bottom, and I was coming up with different ideas for things that I wanted to kind of put in there, thinking like, well, let's get the government involved, and how would the government really kind of view a company like this, and what would their role be in it. And then I was like, well, they're subsidizing it. They're the ones that are funding it, and it's become such a huge thing. It's become the last remaining sport in America, and it's being used as a means for distraction, so that way the government can go about its business. And as different rules are brought in, rights for the everyday citizen are taken away to kind of balance everything out. And so that became what would eventually be the 5-part serial that's out there now, because I blew it up so much that it was just like, I don't want to give people something that originally started like this and all of a sudden say, here it is like this.
Mm,
And that's not hyperbole at all. Like that's
mhm,
that's as big as the book is. And it became something else entirely. So it wound up being something that I'm really, really proud of. I just decided to break it up into 5 parts to
mm,
make it a much more manageable read. And it wound up being something that I can say that, like, yeah, that is what I want to do with it. Now the fun part is, since I own it outright. I'm still debating over what I want to do with it,
mm,
because I have the omnibus edition that's out now, and you can get it as a paperback, or you can get it on a Kindle.
mhm,
And you can also, I have a few copies left, like, because right now I'm just kind of in that mode of, what am I going to do with this behemoth of a story?
mm.
I love this story so much, but at the same time, I want it to connect with the biggest audience possible. And so now I'm considering the notion of breaking it apart into 5 books
Mm.
and putting it out that way, selling it individually. So just to try to do something with it. And
Yeah. Mhm,
but the great thing is that because of all the other projects that I have that are in the pipeline,
mhm,
I have time to
mhm.
do this.
Right.
I can, it's giving me the opportunity to really kind of go through it and do it right this time. I'm proud of how it is. I love how it is. I think that and all credit to my cover designer, Rachel Bostwick, for coming up with a slam dunk of a cover. Um because I worked for a little over 6 months. I actually worked over at a Barnes and Noble over here,
Wow. Wow.
and I was working there at a time when Where the Crawdads Sing had come out, and that was a sensation when that was out there. It was a huge, huge seller. And once the author was on CBS Sunday Morning, I still remember that day, everyone was asking for it. It was one of those things where I had to grab cases from the back and open it up and just literally hand it to customers. So I really liked the simplicity of that cover, because it's got the title right in the center and then the setting down at the bottom. There's something very simple about that, and comforting. And so when I commissioned Rachel to do this, I told her, I said I wanted it to look like this, and this is what I have in mind, and she nailed it. She absolutely nailed it. So if you guys ever need a cover designer, go to Rachel Bostwick, and she'll come up with something great for you.
Yeah, that's very of course your title is interesting, right? First of all, and then it gives this mysterious feel of
Hmm.
it, the
Yeah.
cover, and it's a little bit subdued, a little bit unknown, of course.
Hmm.
Yeah, very, very, very well. So I met you on Clubhouse,
Yes.
and I didn't like you know, communicate with you directly, but I
Mhm.
heard your fantastic audio production performance of your writing of Excelsior.
Excelsior. Yeah.
Excelsior. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about where is this word? This is this word in dictionary, and what
Oh
does
yeah.
that mean?
Yes. Now, the word Excelsior has a really fun history with me because um, back in back in 1992, this is the summer of 1992. I was in summer school. I was not the best student during during my time in Richmond, Virginia. In fact, it was that fourth year was kind of like the nadir of my grades. It was not pleasant. It was not good. I got a D in creative writing. Like that's just it was awful. And I was going to summer school for English. So here's the writer and everything going to school for to retake English in summer school. And so what we did was, um, we watched when we were talking about King Arthur, we talked about the 1981 John Boorman movie, Excalibur. She brought that in. She brought in the PG version. I wanna, make absolute sure of that, you knew that, because there's a PG version and there's an R version, and the R is very R, but the PG one, it was it's nothing was missed in there, that you still understood what was going on. But they it was it captured King Arthur so perfectly, I thought. And it captured that world so perfectly, and it captured the legend so perfectly that all I was thinking of was I need to create someone new who is of this world, of this mindset of King Arthur, this sort of legendary status. That's what I kept thinking about. This is someone who needed to have flaws, but at the same time, he was going to be someone to really kind of galvanize his people. He was going to be the center of my own little universe. He was definitely going to have a sword. But what am I going to call him? And the word Excelsior came to mind because when I was growing up reading Marvel Comics, Stan Lee would use that word Excelsior as the end of his Stan soapbox for all of the comic editorials that he did. Um, and the word was also used as the name of one of the starships in Star Trek's 3, 4, and 6. And to really kind of put the exclamation point on it, it's used on the New York state flag. So I knew that word very well, and I wanted to grab it. I wanted to kind of make it my own, and I was just like, wow, this is going to be it's going to be a lot of fun to take this character to take and see what I can do with it with the name Excelsior. And I gave him like this helmet that looked almost like a gladiatorial helmet, and it was a lot of fun doing that. It was so yeah, so
How
it
did you?
was in the summer of so yeah, so it was in the summer of 92. That's when the whole thing really started. And then from there, I just kept on incorporating him into other stories involving other characters that I had already created. And just kind of kept on picking at him. There were characters that like Danak, like Emperor Nocturar. Those characters all existed back then. They were the ones that were filling my steno notebook pages.
So it's a science fiction.
Yes. Yeah.
So do you have a? Do you guys in movie we call a log line, tagline, whatever log line? What is the
Yeah.
log line of Excelsior?
Um, the tagline that I used was put down the pen, pick up the sword, unleash the hero within. And I had actually put in my basic log line in a book trailer that I did. That's on YouTube. If you just type in like Excelsior book trailer, you'll see it. And there's a funny story about that too, because just to get off on another fun little tangent, um, the let me just move something here real quick. There we go. Okay,
By the way, George, do you have the audio? Can we play to our audience a little bit of that show?
of the show itself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
in fact,
the clubhouse thing.
like I can I can definitely,
Yeah. So
yeah, do
play a
that.
little bit. So and then we can talk about whatever that excerpt is. It was
Yeah,
fascinating. And I also want to know, yeah, I want to know, like, how did you make that happen? How do all these people participate in this incredible performance on
uh,
Clubhouse?
well, first of all, thank you. Thank you very much for that. In fact, I see Molly is one of our commenters,
Hi,
who
Molly.
and I love you too, Molly. Thank you very much for being a part of this. And I am just so grateful that, that she is a part of this. I'm grateful that Chris Woodworth, who has also joined us, I'm
Hi,
thrilled that he is a part of
Chris.
this. And in fact, I'm gonna ask you guys if you guys have the links, for, please go ahead and please go ahead and send that over. Post that in the comments over here for Cheng, so that way she can grab it. Because for me, it would require just kind of going into the Google Drive and trying to, digging around and trying to find it and everything. So, um, but I might be able to do that. So let's see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but um, the way that whole thing came together, the way the whole setup came together, it really kind of goes back to um, being to working on the book itself, because um, the book was started in 2008, and that was when I decided I wanted to actually like put to book form the story of Excelsior. I wanted to really kind of, I felt like I had picked enough at him and I was ready to really kind of bring his story to life. And so I did that. And I wrote it up. My first draft was in a month's time, and I did it in 2008. And when I was so convinced that I had something good after this first draft, that I just sent it over to my dear friend Jerry Ann Geller, who's an editor as well. And I wanted to make sure that I was kind of on the right path with everything. And she read the first chapter and said, "Oh, it's going to take a lot of work." And so we worked for almost 2 years, revising and revising and revising. And I was coming up. That was during the time that I was coming up um, with some new characters as well, to kind of get the storyline like properly balanced, and to bring in some more bad guys, basically some more adversaries. And one of those was a character that eventually became General Hadera, who would be played by in the audio drama by Audra Angelique, who was a guest here and gave such an incredible performance. It matched exactly what it was that I wanted to do with that character. So I was um so taken with her performance, and I was so thrilled with how she did with it. I think she did a magnificent job with it. And there was a time during the initial writing of the first draft when I realized that I didn't have any real female parts. So I took the mentor character, who was originally male, and changed him into what would become Dr. Catherine Sierra / Elder Clara.
Mhm.
And you want to talk about performances, like
Mhm.
Molly just absolutely nailed it. She I couldn't think. Yeah, everyone just kind of was came into their roles so perfectly. And it was so flattering to me, like the
Mhm.
way that they had done it, like the commitment that they gave to it, the professionalism that they showed for this volunteer project. And everyone was just absolutely fabulous. I can't say enough good things about the people that are involved with this. And
How did you find all these? Did you do this through 529? And do
yes,
you know Deborah Wooten before?
I did. Yeah, Deborah and I knew each other from 2001, 2021, I should say. I joined Clubhouse in 2021 in January of that year,
Mhm.
and big shout out to fellow author KM Robinson for giving me that invite in the first place, because I honestly don't know where I'd be if she didn't do that. Um, so I actually took part in a couple of other things with the 529 Club. There was a voiceover challenge, and I was able to make the semifinals with that. We had other things that we were doing, different weekly check-ins that we were always doing, and it was a lot of fun. It was a really good community, and I was always so inspired whenever our conversations ended, and I just wanted to be a part of that so much. I wanted to contribute in a way that I knew that I could, and it just so happened that in January of 2022, that's when Deborah put it out there that they were looking for more material that could be turned into audio dramas. And that's when I raised my hand and I was like, I have a book. I have a book. I have a series of books. And I sent Deborah and Bob Daniel, who is also an amazing person. I sent them the synopsis of the novel. I wasn't expecting them to read it. I wasn't expecting them to listen to the full audiobook or anything like that. I just wanted to just send this over and say, here is the storyline. They read it. They liked it. They said, go for it. And from February to July of 2022, I took something that took me as an audiobook narrator 7 hours for you to read the finished version. And I had to take that and condense it into 1 hour. That was my initial goal. It was supposed to be a 1 hour show. And I did the very best I could.
George, how do you do that? Like when you shoot a film, one page of the script, it's about 1 minute. But
Yeah.
for audio, how do you do that?
That's pretty much the same thing. It's timed out pretty much the same way. And that's what I was going by too. I knew that I had approximately a minute of screen of airtime per page. And so I just kept on going with that mindset. And I was able to get it to about 80 pages at that point. And which came out to like an hour and 20 minutes. But I also knew that during the second half, there's a lot of action. And I believed that we could really kind of, that's where we can really kind of pick up the pace. Lines are on top of each other because there's a lot of screaming going on. There's a lot of yelling going on. There's a lot of explosions going on. There's a lot of action in this. And which created its own problem when we were putting together all the sound effects. But I was able to get it to about 80 pages. I felt like I'd cut as much of it as I possibly could. I felt like that was good enough. And I sent it over to Bob Daniel, and he read it, and he had some notes, but at the same time, I never got those notes because he had to step away from the project. And so Deborah came on as the de facto producer, and she never gave me any notes. We figured out she knew, just as I did, that we were going to figure out what needed to be changed during the rehearsals. We knew we were going to be able to do that. And she, according to Bob's notes and, Deborah's reactions and everything, it was just like, okay, we have a show. So they had a couple of things that were already on their plate, late summer, September, around there. So we decided we were going to set up the auditions for December of that year, of 2022. And it wound up being one of the most amazing experiences of my life because I was asked to put together a few sides, just a couple of scenes, one-on-ones more than anything, and let's find out what we got here. And everyone who auditioned, it was stellar. It was absolutely stellar. It was so much fun to listen to everyone and really hear these characters that have been in my head more or less for just about 30 years at that point. And
How did you do auditions? Did you do Zoom?
Through Clubhouse, actually.
Oh, okay.
We set it up through Clubhouse. Deborah, took the reins for that and really, was the guiding force of everything. I was there obviously to provide my notes on these characters, and what she was able to do was stellar. She brought in so many people I expected the whole thing to last maybe about like an hour, hour and a half or something like that. It went over 3 hours. And it was just because everyone kept on coming. They kept
Mm,
on coming. They wanted to keep on auditioning. They enjoyed what they were reading. They were into it, and they just delivered so
mm,
much.
mm,
And as I was thinking, it was just like, how am I going to do this? How am I
mm,
going to, how am I going to properly break this down? I was under the impression initially that because it was an audio drama and because I'm working with all these different voice actors, that they could um, that they could play more than one character.
mm,
But as we were coming up with the casting, uh, when Deborah and I were able to sit down after the auditions, and I was able to say, like, well, I know, this and this, and these specific people are just going to be it, for these roles. Um, Initially, I reached out to Chris Woodworth because I knew he had to play the character called Zaribas, and
mm,
he's one of the supporting characters. But he's got quite a bit to do. He's got a really good story behind him, and he's someone that I knew that Chris was just going to nail 100%, and he did. And when I during the auditions, I heard Audra Angelique
mhm.
doing the voice of Willatar, and she was tremendous, was absolutely tremendous. So, it was um, such a great experience going
Right.
through all of that. And,
I want to say hello to Johanna. Hi, Johanna.
Johanna, hello. Johanna, she was, such a tremendous talent. I knew that, like, that I needed to, get her involved, and I wasn't 100% sure exactly, like, what would be where would be the best spot to put her. I did not want to, just give her like one line and that was it. And there's one character who initially is supposed to be a male, and a very large male named Granick. And like I always pictured him as Paul White, the Big Show from WWE, and just very like kind of gentle giant kind of person. And when the influx of female actors were coming in, it just felt like, all right, I gotta change up some genders here. I just feel like it just needed to I needed to have more for these women to do. And so Granick became a female. There was a medic character named Karini. He became a female. And very importantly, one of the main characters, my main character's uncle, Jason Peters, became his aunt, JC Peters, and wound up being one of the best decisions I could have made about that, because Erica Harvey came in and gave a performance that I was absolutely floored by. Um, she brought tears to my eyes on more than one occasion, and she was just terrific. And I know that, like all the other cast members can say the exact same thing, because we were all just like, by the end of it, you know, we were all just like breaking down. Like it was just a phenomenal performance. And Johanna took Granick and had so much fun with him, and made that character her own. And it became such a blast to listen to her, and I loved it. Like, I mean, I could spend like, the next 2 hours like talking about just how terrific all these actors are. Um and I
George,
would be right on with
George,
them.
George. I went on my phone. I found your performance. Should I just play a little bit? Like
Sure.
I don't really know where. It's just I'm just randomly
Yeah.
so this one is a live audio drama part one.
Hmm.
Beforehand part two. What does that mean?
Oh, what we did was, what we did was on the 12th, on March 12th, we we performed part 1 live. But in order to make sure that people don't get lost um, when they play when they hear part 2, we decided we were going to replay the performance of part 1 and then go right into part 2. So that way everyone had the best possible experience hearing the whole show.
Oh, okay.
So, but what I was able to do was I was able to go back into that initial file, and I was able to um, make some adjustments with some sound effects that were missed, and that was on me. It was my own system just kind of like freezing on me because I was doing the sound operating for all the effects. And um, there was one scene where the clubhouse connection wound up being a little shaky, and so I was able to switch out the audio for with some audio from a rehearsal where it sounded much better,
Okay.
and was able to make a couple of adjustments there, and then we were able to put that version of it as the replay, and
Do
it
you
wound up
have
working really well.
Do you have any preference, like at what minute I should play, or doesn't matter because
Doesn't really matter. I'm sure
it's 3 hours.
each minute has a story to it.
It's
We'll
three
say.
hours. Okay, so let's see. I'll just start. Okay, I just start somewhere. All right. So no offense, you people there, and there's no preference of anybody. So let me see the audio. How's it go?
Enough to secure funding for the next 5 decades. But this, trust me, Dr. Shera.
Catherine, I have told you before.
Yes, Catherine. We've always wondered whether we're alone in the universe, and the answer was beneath our feet the whole time.
It is protected, yes?
Fully encased, airtight, transparent.
And no one is in the examination room with this specimen, correct?
Of course not. You and I are the only ones who have seen it, and I was only in the room to set up the cameras.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
This is a one person from Marla's icon. There's 2 voices. Is that you? One of them?
No. That is Molly as Dr. Catherine Sierra, and that is Vasilis Glimpatsos playing Dr. Franklin Ritkin.
Okay.
And both of them just they were perfect with what they were doing.
Mm.
And it was just so much fun listening to that unfold.
Mm.
And it was the whole experience was just it was magic. The
Oh,
whole
I just
experience was
moved.
absolutely magic.
George, I just moved my finger a little bit further. Then I
Mhm.
find lots of characters. Okay, so I'm just gonna play a little bit.
Confine it.
Sure.
It let out a very shrill noise, and it went through the whole museum. So this barricade here was set up instead, so that the chosen one could touch it.
Fascinating.
All right, Spock, come on. We need to create a diversion.
How?
I don't know yet. Give me a minute. I hope Matt's doing okay.
He will be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that scene was a really fun one. That was because
comfortable.
that whole scene that whole
Yeah, go ahead.
okay, that whole scene was it's all takes place in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it was that what you heard was a little bit from Erica Harvey playing J.C. Peters. You heard Chris Woodworth as Erebus, and you also heard Laura McKee just nailing it as the tour guide. And she was able to take that that small role and just push it to the hilt, and it was so good, and she was so perfect with what she was doing that I told her afterwards. I was like, okay, you need to be the one to read the opening credits and the closing credits, and she did a magnificent job with it. And it was just like that was the great thing about it, was like the more each rehearsal played out, the more fun everyone was having with the characters, the more they were really kind of locking into them. And the more I wanted to give them to do. So there's a whole scene with Chris Woodworth and Jackie Hume, who played Karini, because Jackie did such a great part with Karini. Karini is a small part. So I wanted to give her more to do. And so during like a couple of weeks before we were finished, before we could consider the show completely locked, and I went back and I just wrote a whole scene, an early scene between the two of them, just the two of them. And that was great because it added a little extra character dimension to them. There was a time when we were trying to figure out, we decided that we were going to make it into 2 parts because it felt like it was playing a lot longer than we originally thought. I thought the whole thing was going to be an hour and 20 minutes at the most. It wound up coming out to almost 2 hours. So that was when Deborah made the executive decision, let's chop it in 2, and we'll perform part 1 on 1 week, we'll perform part 2 the next week. And we'll make it something big. And so that gave me some extra space to work with for each episode. And it just so happened that Shaq Hussein, who was playing Emperor Nocturar in this, he had a conflicting scheduling issue, so he was able to participate for part 2, but not part 1. But at the same time, he only had 1 scene in part 1 initially. So I took that scene and I made that the beginning of part 2, and added in an additional scene with Hadera and a Carnation soldier, and let them kind of talk about Nocturar, about what had just occurred a few scenes ago. And it gave it this extra element of an aura about Nocturar, because it's very much like David Carradine as Bill in Kill Bill volumes 1 and 2. You never see Bill, you hear him, but he's kept in the shadows. You just see his feet as he's walking through the church, as he's holding one of his swords, as he's comforting Sophie Fatale's, as she, after she was maimed by Beatrix. So you have all these great moments, and then it makes his final appearance, his first appearance in volume 2, so much more epic, because we've been just kind of keeping him at a distance for so long. So that's basically what I wound up doing for Nocturar with part 1.
What is the ultimate goal? Do you have ultimate goal for this work to be a visual or just audio? And where can this go? Can you make an audio book out of all these performances?
I don't want to make an audio book out of it because then it becomes something where I'm I'm making money off of it and no one else is. I don't want to do that. I want everyone to benefit in some way from this. And if I were to put it on Audible, then it would become just it would become a bookkeeping nightmare to try to figure out everything there. But I look at this production as a proof of concept. It can go in many different places, and whether it stays in audio or whether it goes into animation, whether it goes into live action, whatever it winds up being, this is proof that it can be done, and it can be done in an exciting fashion.
That's very interesting. Now let's talk about you wear a lot of hats. You're a writer, right?
Mhm.
And you're a producer. You're now a director,
Yep.
and you also started this new journey of becoming a podcaster. So tell us a little
Yes.
bit about that.
So back in 2016, I joined this podcast called Right Pack Radio, and it was a group of authors that have all kind of come together to do these weekly roundtable discussions about writing in general. And I was brought in as a guest, but at the same time, I knew everyone that was there. I was friends with just about everyone. And they asked me to be a guest because the topic was going to be audiobooks. And it was at that time, that's when I had just started my own journey as an audiobook narrator. I had just finished my first one. It was my first audio adaptation of Excelsior. And this was back during the time when it was with a small press that was based out of St. Louis. And so so when the book had come out and everything, just real quickly, it had come out as a self-published version in 2010. It was re-released as just an ebook only at the end of 2011, beginning of 2012. It was picked up by a small press in St. Louis in 2013, and then when that small press closed, it got picked up by another small press at the end of 2017, and then that small press, unfortunately, has shut its doors as of last year. So my agent, Amy Brewer of Metamorphosis Literary Agency, is doing a phenomenal job already, just working to find a new home for it. And I am, very, very grateful to her for all the work that she's doing, because she is fabulous. But for this, when I went on to talk on Right Pack Radio about audiobooks, I had such a good time, and it felt like it was one of those things where you just kind of like, you get that bug and you just feel like, oh, this was fun. I like this. I like this format. I can be a part of this. And David Lucas, who was the producer of Right Pack Radio and also a good friend, and still is to this day, he must have read my mind, because he immediately asked everyone, can I get a show of hands for allowing George into the Right Pack? And everyone raised their hands. There was no dissension, thankfully. And I was a member of the Right Pack from then on. And then it was in 2018, at some point, that's when I was throwing around the possibility of starting my own show. And I was thinking like, well, I'm not sure about that, because I know I got like other things that are in the pipeline, but at the same time, I really love this format. I love what I'm doing, love having this kind of fun with it. And then I look back at my list of Facebook friends, and I saw people from all walks of life, from grade school to college to working, and a whole lot of wonderful creative people that I only knew online. And I was thinking like, wow, these people are amazing. These people are all just so cool. Like, they're so talented. They need a podcast. They need to be out there. They need to let the world know what it is that they do. And then after a couple of months of stewing on that, it just became, okay, they need to be on my podcast. And then it just became like, all right, I'm gonna do this, but I don't know what I'm gonna call it. And it was at that time I was at a convention, so I was selling copies of my books, and I had this big banner that the small press Aloris Publishing had given me, and I was talking about it with David about what I was going to call this thing. I was throwing around a couple of ideas, and they didn't really work. But he looked over my shoulder and he saw the banner that I had up, and the version that was done for Aloris Publishing, the cover art, which is phenomenal. Molly Phipps, I love you. You're a genius. And the bottom of it says part 1 in the Excelsior journey. And so he just points to that and just goes, why don't you just call it the Excelsior journey? And I turned around and I was like, oh, that's good. But let's tweak it. Let's call it Excelsior Journeys, because everyone has their own. And then a couple months later, after I had commissioned Molly Phipps to take the same sort of artwork and then just do like a variation on it for what would be the podcast, which as soon as she sent me that, I was just like, this is it. This is absolutely it. This is perfect. Thank you. A couple months later, Excelsior Journeys was born, and it was simply me reaching out to all the different creative people that I'm fortunate to have in my life, and they're doing those interviews and allowing them the space to kind of share their own journey.
How long is your interview, and how
They
often?
they average about an hour,
Mm.
and sometimes though it can go further. It really just kind of depends on how I'm vibing with that particular person.
Is this on your? Is your podcast is on your website right now? I'm
It
looking.
is.
Oh.
Yeah, you go to he'sgotit.com/podcasts.
So
And
I can click on something right now.
Yeah.
Let me see. What want to be a guest? All right. So where can I listen to it?
You can listen. You can go to the main website for it is called excelsiorjourneys.captivate.fm.
Oh, so it's not on the website. Sorry.
It's there. There's the embedded player on the website.
Oh, did you see what? Can you see what I'm seeing? Oh,
Not
no,
yet.
no, no. Oh, okay. Sorry. Let me do it again. I think I'm not doing it correctly. I am looking at your website. So here we go. Here we go. Okay. So anywhere
If
I
you
can
go to where it says podcasts,
yeah.
click on that.
Okay.
All right. Now scroll down.
Scroll down.
Actually, hold on. Scroll up. My mistake.
Okay.
Yeah. Go to where it has the Excelsior Journeys logo at the top.
Here.
Oh, did it not show it up there? Oh, I know what happened. Okay. All right. So it so yeah, those are my two main shows, but I just sent over to you the website to actually access the main shows.
Oh.
The shows themselves.
Oh.
And if you go to that
Okay.
will take you over to the main website that actually houses the episodes.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Okay. So it's the last you send me something. Let me see. Is it just right now, right? Excelsior.
Yeah.
Okay. It's this link. Okay. Hold on. Yeah. So your purpose, how do you find do you find people in what capacity? Like, do you find them you already know, or do you
Yeah.
find your guests you don't
Well,
know?
for the most part, like I will. There are people that I already know. And it was doing this show for almost 2 years that gave me the confidence to reach out to people that are outside of my bubble, but people that I admire or have admired since childhood. And so one of my favorite episodes was from 2020 when I spoke with a gentleman named Flint Dilley. Flint Dilley was the story consultant for Transformers the movie, the 1986 animated film. And he was he had given the script the final polish and made the sort of changes that would wind up being on the screen. And he did we talked for about 2 hours, and we could have kept talking even longer. It was so much fun talking to him and getting his whole background with writing and how he became such an integral part of the 1980s animation wave. And he even got to drop a little bit of a scoop for me when he gave me a little bit of news about one particular character on a show that he wrote called Inhumanoids. And he mentioned that that this particular character is the current version of a character from G.I. Joe named Ace. And I didn't know that. And I was so thrilled about that. And apparently someone from CBR.com didn't know it either, because they went ahead and made it into a story like late at night one night. And he mentioned the show. He didn't mention me, but he did mention the show. And I was very grateful for that. But that particular episode was a real highlight because
can we listen to just a little bit of some episode?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one?
If you scroll down a little bit, there's one there that says 20 years after Sideways,
What day?
author
Oh, here. I see
yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's right there.
Can you see what I'm seeing right now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Shall we listen to a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
because
tell us who you interviewing.
I was speaking with Rex Pickett. He was the author of the book Sideways that became the Academy Award-winning movie with Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church.
Yeah,
And
it's great film.
Yeah. It was a terrific film, and it was a lot of fun to be able to talk to him about basically, like, not only coming up with it, but like going forward with these characters, because he had gone on to write sequels. And it was such a joy to listen to him. And in fact, I believe it's next week, on the 15th, I think. That's when he's going to either Saturday the 15th. I think he's going to be doing another signing at a vineyard. So I don't know the exact details for that one, but I know if you go to his page, you'll be able to find that. And if you're in the area, definitely check it out. He's a really good guy.
How did you know him?
It was really just kind of happening to follow him on Instagram and him following me back. It would whenever that happens, whenever I get a follow back, then it's just like, ooh, that's amazing. But then I always want to like wait a little bit. I don't want to just jump right away and say, hey, want to be on the show? I don't want to make it look like that. So I sit back and everything. I see more about what they're doing. And if there's something that's going on that they can talk about, then that's when I can say, by the way, would you like to be on my show and you can talk about this? The interview with Rex was a lot of fun. The interviews that I've had since that, before that, after that, it's all just been a true treasure. Just being involved with that, with so many, getting the chance to talk to so many people, either up and coming creatives, people that have reached out to me on podmatch.com, which is a terrific site for any podcaster, to get guests, basically. Potential guests reach out, and they see like whether or not their show would be a good match. Your show would be a good match for them. And if they are, then they go ahead and contact you. And so there've been quite a few people that I've gotten to connect with through podmatch.com. So any podcasters that are running their own interview shows, definitely go to that. Go to podmatch.com, get yourself set up with that, because you'll be glad you did. You're going to get a whole new resource of people that you wouldn't have known otherwise. And the connections that I made through that have been just fantastic as well. So, that this podcast that I've been doing it for more than 4 years now. And the connections that it's made, I wouldn't have had otherwise. And it's been so much fun, and I'm very grateful to all the guests that have come on. I'm closing in on 200 episodes. I never thought I would get that far, but
when you do your podcast, it's just only audio. You do not do like a YouTube, like right now we're doing.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I do the same thing. I do my interviews from StreamYard, and I keep the video on the screen so that way there is the connection there. But more often than not, like whenever I'm doing something like that, I'm normally just speaking like this, just looking straight ahead into the microphone, so that way I'm getting the best possible audio from it. The way that my studio here is configured, the spot where I have my camera right now, it's right over the monitor, so that way I can look into your eyes and also look at the camera that's right above you. So,
and when you interview your guest, you do have a video so you can see them, right?
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. and they can see me, and but then then I assure them that they're only going to be it's audio only. So when they come on, they're not they're not all fully dressed up and everything for it. So that way I can just kind of let them know it's just like, all right, you can relax, you can let your guard down a little bit and everything. Um and by doing that, it winds up being really fun interviews. They open up really well, and they have a lot of fun doing it too.
So yeah, very interesting. Now when you look for people to interview to, right? And
Mhm,
how and specifically how do you like prepare? Like when I interview people, right? I find people interesting. I find people who has something to say. I find
mhm.
people who wants to be heard,
Yeah.
you know, because sometimes people, they don't want to bother, they
Mhm.
don't, they're doing great things but they still don't want to tell people.
Yeah.
So and also I don't know about your way. My way of interviewing people is I have some kind of outline in my head. I
Mhm.
don't write it down. I do
Yeah.
not have like people say, "Can you give me a question?" No, no, I do not give question because I don't
Mhm.
even write down questions anymore.
Right.
So yeah, and I would just like look at their biography, right? And then I'll pick important events or important accomplishment or something going on right now if they want to talk about. And then I will always just follow the thread, what they talk about on
Mhm.
the spot. So it's very
Yeah.
improvisational. So tell me about yours. Like, how do you prepare?
It's very similar to that. I would say that one of the things that I do more often, one thing I've started doing a lot more is I've started writing out what my intro is, because I usually spend about 3 minutes or so um, getting things started and talking a little bit about how something that this person has done or something that they're involved in or whatever field they're in, how it fits my life. What is it about that grabbed my attention? And because if it grabs my attention and I'm invested, then I want to make sure that everyone else is invested. And so, one of the things that you'll hear at the beginning of each show after I give my introduction is when I ask the person, how are they doing today? And they come back just saying like, I've been doing great. Thanks so much for having me here. Thank you very much for that introduction. They love the introductions. And that's just me saying that, like, hey, like, you're important and to me, and this is why. And because of that, that allows that, that kind of gives them a little, like a good vibe to really kind of start things off with. So what I'll do is more often than not lately, I've been writing it down. So that way I have it. And that way I'm not stumbling over my words when I do my initial intro.
That's very
Um,
great. Yeah, very
because I have my share of more than my share of saying ums and uhs. And when I discovered the software Descript and started using that on a regular basis to cut out all those filler words, I also found that a big filler word for me is, So after I get rid of the ums and uhs, then I look for the knows. And I find it's littered with that, with that. I don't even realize that I'm saying it when I'm saying it. Like that's a thing that really grabbed me when I saw when I felt like I had done a really good job. I was able to keep my filler words in check, and I felt like I delivered something nice and clean. And here I am, like taking a look through it and everything. It was like, when the hell did I say Just like, well, you said it 47 times here, here, and here. It's like, how?
Yeah, it's very difficult to have these words or when you're not, sure what do you want to say or just
Mhm.
yeah, unintentionally say these things.
Yeah.
And very interesting. Now, can you yeah, I was very impressed with your intro. Can you do a voiceover for us? Because your voiceover and I we have to stop this soon, okay? So,
Yeah.
but can you please do a voiceover for us, like 2-3 characters?
Oh my. um. Well, I mean, when I had on one of my guests that I had on, was a gentleman named Gilbert Adler. Gilbert was a producer of Tales from the Crypt, and he's also done just a whole, he's done a tremendous amount of work, but he's really well known for Tales from the Crypt. And when I told him that one of the things that I loved to do during college days was do my Crypt Keeper voice, he asked to hear it. So I just went up to him and it's like,
well, kiddies, it looks like your Crypt Keeper is in for the fright of his life. I mean, death.
so yeah, that was
Awesome.
that was one of those that I did. I used to do it a lot better. It feels like in the years to come, like my voice had just kind of altered a little bit. But I mean, I was doing Crypt Keeper just full on out, the cackle that he would do at the beginning of every show. I used to be able to do that. I'm so rusty with that. I'm not sure if I can reach those high notes yet. But when one of the things that I like to talk about when it comes to audiobooks is I would say that to people, I would advise them to not go so far that they would completely destroy their voice. And I would say to them, like, you are not Chris Latta. And Chris Latta was the voice, God rest his soul, of Starscream and Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe and Transformers. And when people ask that, like, I would either play a clip of him, or I would just go,
the fault, most Imperial Serpentor, lies not within us, but within you.
And just let it all out like that. That's not something you should be able to do for your voice on a regular basis. The fact that he was able to do that for 200 episodes, is amazing. And I wish I could ask him about that, but unfortunately he's been gone for almost 30 years now. But it was, but that's something that I always, want to remind people, just like, you really shouldn't do that. But one of my favorite voices of all time to do is when I realized that I can do a pretty good William Hickey, who's Uncle Lewis from Christmas Vacation. Just looking at just like it's like a regular thing, like over here at home. And I would just go, you couldn't hear a dump truck driving through a nitroglycerin plant. And it's one of my favorite voices to do. And that was something that I was able to do as on a video on TikTok with another voice actress, and who is amazing as well. And we did a clip from The Nightmare Before Christmas. And so I got to play Dr. Finkelstein with that, because that was who William Hickey played. And so I got to go like,
worm's wort, and frog's breath. Nothing is more suspicious than frog's breath. Until you taste it, I won't swallow a spoonful.
That's awesome. So speaking of TikTok, so how many social media do you use, and what are the top 3 you use more often than the other?
The top 2 really are Facebook and Instagram. I'm on Twitter occasionally, not as much as I used to be. And I'm on TikTok, but not as much as I should be, because I feel like that's some big opportunities to really kind of get some more videos out there. There are certain things that I've been thinking of just like trying to think of like what would be different fun ones to do. I put up a couple of voiceover challenges where I get to display some text from something that I've written and allow people to just kind of put their own spin on it. And that was a lot of fun. But with the now, like full on launch of the podcast network that I'm doing with a couple other partners, that's something that I feel like I need to be putting out on TikTok a lot more, because the network, it's called the Once Upon a Podcast Network.
Mm-hmm.
And it's based off of an annual event that author Stacey Rourke does, called Once Upon a Book. and she and I are friends, and we're talking about collaborating on something. And that's when I reached out to her and said, what do you think about this, the Once Upon a Podcast Network? And she
Mhm.
just said, you're like, yes, I love it. And
Mhm.
then that was in September, and it's now a de facto network. We have 5 shows now that are out, including my own, including hers. And then we have 3 other shows that are all geared toward well, what we say, it is inspiring, it's motivating, it's celebrating, it's educating, and it's even rejuvenating creatives of all kinds.
That's
And
wonderful.
so like that's what we that's what we got to really got to talk about. And that was something that I'm really proud of, that that we've been able to see this through, that we got it going, and we have some really great people that are involved, that want to be involved in it. And I mean, how it is, like, being able to kind of like take something out of nothing. Like, you were able to take your Yang Gang Diary and making it into something that's now, my understanding is, it's on Prime Video, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we just went out last Friday. Last
Mhm.
Friday, I realized it. So I don't know which day they actually went out. Yeah, before that, 4 months ago, we were on Tubi.
Mhm.
So my Younger Diary is a feature documentary that I shot on iPhone 11, and is basically documenting people who supported Andrew Yan's 2020 primary presidential campaign. And it
Mhm.
was like it just a, I was very fascinated by the grassroots movement.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's so people, if you, yeah, if you have time and make time to see it, because it only costs you $1.99 on the Prime
And
Amazon
that's
Prime.
to rent it, right? Then it's like, what, 4.99 to
Rental is
buy it?
$2, yeah, and you can buy it for $5. Yeah, less than a fancy coffee. Yeah,
Yeah, which is what I'll be doing. Like, I'm gonna
please.
be adding that to my collection. So yeah,
Yeah.
because I
So
mean, that to me is just like really fascinating, that you can just go ahead and take something like that. That's something that um that I've had, like, I've reached out to the cast members of the audio drama,
yeah,
and ask them just like a series of questions, and ask them to just kind of put that on video.
yeah.
And so that way, after my current projects are all taken care of,
Mhm,
all the different things that I'm doing,
mhm,
I can actually like take a step back from the narrating, and put this, my own little documentary together,
mhm,
because I want to document this too.
mhm,
And the fact that I can do that, the fact that like guys, people like Jerry Weil, who played my main character Matthew Peters in Excelsior, and did a phenomenal job with that. He can put together a 15-minute video,
mhm,
and answering all my questions, send that over to me. Chris Woodworth can do the same thing. Ben Chai, who played, the small role of Nick the Bully, but like, man, he played it to the hilt, and he had a lot of fun doing it. And
mhm.
he's got a fascinating story to tell too. So it's like like, it's giving a chance for everyone to kind of tell give their tell their story, their own Excelsior journey, if you will.
Right,
And
right.
so like, it's these resources that we have. The fact that you're able to film that on an iPhone, that
Yeah.
blows my mind.
Yeah, so I've been having a clubhouse for 2 years now. Just talk about how to use smartphone to shoot. So you guys are welcome to our, I guess, house now, right? It was a club. It's called
Yeah.
Smartphone Video Production. Every Friday at 12 p.m. and we host 2 hours. Or sometimes goes on 6 hours. Depends on who's
6
on.
hours. Wow.
Sometimes, yeah. So yeah, it's a very I think everyone has a smartphone these days, pretty much, and
Mhm.
one should really utilize that. And if you want to capture amazing stuff, and
Mhm.
just do it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we need to wrap up. Right now,
Mhm.
I want to thank you, George, for speaking with me and telling all the incredible stories. And, how talented you are. You wear so many different hats. I was just wondering, like, in terms of writing, right? I'm not a writer that much, and
Mhm.
do you have to be very disciplined and do it every single day, Like, where are these thoughts come from? Do you think about them all the time, or you write down immediately, or they circling around in your head for a long time, then you write it down?
A
Like, can you
lot of
just give
a
us
lot of
quick,
them a
quick
lot of them are
spiel?
circling around. A lot of them are circling around my head, but they don't really take shape until I'm listening to the right piece of music.
Oh,
Um,
really?
that is something that really just kind of
Oh, we gotta talk
grabs me.
about music. Mm.
There was one particular piece of music. I remember this very vividly. I was walking around my subdivision where I was living at the time, and I was listening to, some different pieces of music that I had on my MP3 player. And one of them was a piece, I think it was called Betrayal, but it's from a movie called Enemy at the Gates with I think it was Jude Law and Ed Harris and Rachel Weisz, and she was also in it. Really good film. And there's one part of it that just it grabbed me so much. It was during this very critical point in the story where everything was just kind of going to hell. And I believe it was James Horner who had that score, and it's so good, and it grabbed me so much, this particular piece, that it
Interesting.
actually inspired a major scene to end what would wind up being part 4 of my From Parts Unknown 5-part serial.
Mm.
So, and there was another scene from a piece of music called from Transformers Dark of the Moon, from that soundtrack, a piece of Steve Jablonsky did called It's Our Fight. That whole piece inspired the setup for the final battle in the 3rd Excelsior book that I've yet to write. But that scene is locked into my memory because of that music. Like I can spout out dialogue from that moment. But if I do, I spoil a whole lot of it. So I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
But but hearing the right piece of music is what makes all the difference for me, because
that's
then I can see,
interesting.
like, I
Yeah.
can see it in my head
I'm a
as if I'm
musician,
watching
you
it.
know. You know,
Really?
I'm trained, classical trained violist.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, I also taught in college and taught music history and appreciation, classical music
Yeah,
appreciation.
I've been a film score lover, for
Oh,
pretty
film
much my
score.
whole life,
All right.
life.
Yeah. But
So
we can talk about music next time. So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
we're gonna do it like right now, like a clubhouse. I don't know how much time you spend on clubhouse. I live on clubhouse,
Mhm.
and we say last word now. Okay, your turn. Last word.
Last words are just, first of all, thank you very much for having me, and I am just very grateful to everyone who's been involved with the audio drama, with the audio books, for giving me these opportunities, for all of my guests on the podcast, for and just for allowing me to have the time of my life doing what I'm doing. I've, somehow been able to balance my work life, my full-time work life, with home life, with doing all these different projects, and I'm still keeping up. I'm not feeling overwhelmed. And it's something, it really just has to do with the people that I'm working with, and everyone that I'm working with right now in all walks of life. Thank you. Thank you so much. And just as a real, just a special word of encouragement for any creative out there that is looking to dive into their own passions and, create something positive for this world. The resources that we have at our disposal are more than we've ever had. So use them and take advantage of that, and see what you can do to put something out there. Um, you know, Ching took her phone and now has something that she's selling on Amazon. Like, it's we're living in an amazing time right now. So let's enjoy it. Let's use it. Let's take the tools that we have and run with them, because we haven't had these opportunities before. Who knows how long they're going to last? So take them, run with them, and have fun. And by all means, ever upward.
Excellent point. Excellent point. I never thought about that. Like how 20 years ago the journey of creators compared to now, right? The
Hmm.
venues is so different, and the resources. Excuse me. So yeah, last word from me. Okay, thank you so much, George, to be with me and chatting. It's so much fun. And I wanted to chime in. The I do this interview once a week, sometimes twice a week. Like this week I did twice. So please, check in with me and subscribe to this channel if you liking our program. And what else? Yeah, and so my film. Go see my film, My Young Gun Diary. Yeah. So I would love to hear from you and write some reviews if you can. You can also write review on IMDb. That's also very benefit for filmmaker because it's a very I guess reputable. Do you have IMDb?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
fact, I have the Excelsior Journeys podcast on IMDb,
Oh,
but I
awesome.
only have like a few episodes on there. I am way behind on getting
Oh,
that stuff done. So that's another thing that I want to do during the
write
second
some
half of this year.
reviews. When
Yeah.
write reviews for artists or on IMDb. I was
Yeah.
told it's a very good thing because if you just open Amazon Prime Video, right? If you don't watch it, there's nowhere you can write review. Okay,
Hmm.
of course you have to watch it, but
Yep.
IMDb you can just rate the film or rate your podcast. I assume so. I'll
Hmm.
definitely check you out on IMDb. And
Excellent.
the least thing we could do for friends and our creators is to, say something, on the platform. I think it's a digital currency, right?
Yeah.
We do
Yeah.
all of these. We don't make money. I don't make money. So anyway, yeah. What else? Oh yeah, one last word. I always believe do that one thing. One thing will lead
Hmm.
to another thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody watching us. Yeah. So you can repurpose this and re-listen to this and revisit us. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. So have a great Saturday and yeah, great weekend. Thank you, George.
Thank you guys.
Okay. Bye now. Thank you, Johanna. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Audra. Thank all of you. Did I miss anyone around? Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. Jamie, thank you. Thank you, people watching and listen to us. Your face is not here, but we still thank you. And yeah, Chris, thank you so much. Yeah. Bye now.
Thank you guys.
再见。